the price we announced today of $449 for the single SKU. We didn't consider tariffs into that equation. We felt that that was going to be the right price point for our consumers and the right value proposition, if you will, for the device that we're creating.
We are entering into a new era of Nintendo, as said by Nintendo, which almost has flashbacks to how Xbox was branding themselves after the reveal of the Xbox One, and the parallels with the Xbox One and some of the disastrous consoles over the last number of years. It's alarming how many parallels there are so far. But regardless of how people feel about the Nintendo Switch 2 so far, it looks like excitement is in the air. You can look to the debut trailer, 226,000 likes to 25,000 likes. I think a lot of people like the advancements that Nintendo has made here, but obviously there are many detractors, many not feeling this console, and a lot of that has to do with the pricing so far, as you can see in the comment section of the debut YouTube video here, the reveal event. Thank you, Nintendo, but our wallet is in another castle. And that is a great summarization of a lot that we're going to be going through this video, and some of the defenses coming from Nintendo, because Doug Bowser, one of the heads at Nintendo, has said a lot recently, and he has defended a lot of the moves that Nintendo has made, and he's also said a lot of stuff that just comes off as pure nonsense. But we have, like I said, we have seen detractors. Shuhei Yoshida, one of the former top heads at PlayStation, said that the event was underwhelming until From Software showed up. His critique was more so that there wasn't a lot of original games, there was a lot of remakes and remasters and stuff along those lines, and I can understand that criticism. I genuinely can. I think there was only two big Nintendo games. What was it? Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, and I probably said that wrong. But then there is also the tutorial like Welcome Tour, if you consider that a game, and I guess Nintendo does. But like I said, the specs, some of the upgrades that have come here, I think Nintendo understood the assignment and the fact that they didn't really need to completely redesign everything. They just needed to give the Switch a little bit of a massive upgrade in terms of its power, its potential, and we've seen that with the specs that have been revealed. And I think that is what excited a lot of people originally when this was announced, and also some of the leaks over the last number of months. But like I said, some of the other stuff that has come out, and NVIDIA confirmed that there's going to be DLSS and real-time ray tracing. That is great. Games are going to look better, and the games are also going to hopefully have a little bit more potential in terms of what can be provided to players, because yes, there was limitations. You could see that with many of the last number of entries. Now, whether Nintendo takes this console to its fullest potential, that remains to be seen. But like I said, Nintendo's president, Doug Bowser, just saying a lot of mind-boggling stuff lately. This is one of the couple of comments we're going to be talking about in this video. But yes, he channeled the Xbox One's disastrous launch messaging when defending Switch 2 pricing. So this specifically is in regards to the console price, because yes, I believe the debut price for the Switch back all those years ago was $299. This time around it's $450. And a lot of people, even with that price point, found that absolutely ridiculous, because I think one of the reasons why the Nintendo Switch flourished when it came out and has become a sales behemoth over the last number of years, challenging the PS2 in terms of one of the top consoles sold of all time, is because of its affordability. And that is not what's happening here at all. They're actually taking a book from what Xbox did with the Xbox One, and also I think more notably with Sony with what they did with the PlayStation 3, which ended up really messing up that generation for them. Now, Doug Bowser, in this interview with CBC, he is the Nintendo president. He has been trying to help everyone understand why the Switch 2 was priced at $450 in the US, and that really should have an asterisk next to it because of the current real-world situation, tariffs. Nintendo has indicated that they don't know what's going to happen. Maybe there'll be another increase, so an increase on top of an increase, and that's more noticeable with the game prices we're going to be getting into in Doug Bowser's comments. But again, we'll talk about that as this video develops, because he had a lot to say in that regard. Now, specifically, Bowser, he explained that the tariffs had nothing to do with that lofty price. So the tariffs, a lot of experts were saying this is because of, no, that has not been factored into this at all yet, which is kind of alarming at this point. But speaking with CBC, the Nintendo boss told those who won't be able to afford the Switch 2 that they can keep playing the original Switch, which again, Don Madrick, if you don't know, he was the Xbox One boss at the time. That just reminds me of his comments back at the time when he was pushing online connection, always online. He said, if you don't like it, go play the Xbox 360. And Bowser saying that, just go play the Nintendo Switch. I genuinely think a lot of people may be doing that, especially with some of the greed that is going on here, the blatant greed. Now he says, we recognize there are some people that may not be able to afford the Switch 2's price point. That's why we wanted to make the other Switch platforms available, Bowser explained. And I just find this comment absolutely ridiculous, and I think a lot of people rightfully have been ridiculing his remarks and a lot of the other stuff we're going to be getting into as this video develops. But like I said, the Nintendo Switch 2 reveal event, there was a lot of cool things announced. The Dusk Bloods was the big one. I think a lot of people originally thought that this was like Castlevania or something else, but From Software, you know, their name card popping up, that was a massive shock to everybody. And I believe that this is a timed exclusive thing, so maybe this eventually makes its way to other platforms, but this is a big get for Nintendo. I do wonder if there's going to be a massive player base there day one, or that remains to be seen, but we'll see. Now, we also saw Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4. There's a bunch of other third-party games that were announced, so Nintendo definitely making up some of the mistakes that they have in the past. That's not going to be the case here with the Switch 2, and I think that's more so a lot of AAA publishers understanding that Nintendo just has a massive platform now, and especially after the Wii U, I think there was a lot of skepticism with Nintendo moving forward and supporting their console, but that's just not the case anymore. Like, I'm sure we'll probably eventually see a game like Grand Theft Auto 6 make its way to the Nintendo Switch. This is a platform developers, publishers want to be on. Now, it is also worth mentioning, Hollow Knight Silksong finally made an appearance. It was very brief, but it is launching this year. Awesome to see that news after, I think, 8 years ago it was announced it in a Nintendo event or something. So like I said, there was definitely some cool reveals here, even some of the exclusive games. Mario Kart World looks kind of interesting. We obviously Donkey Kong Bonanza was also another big announcement, and it seems to be a lot of critics and those who played it said it was a big highlight of the event. So yes, there does seem to be some really cool games that are going to be there day one for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's just the pricing and some of the other stuff going on around this game, which has floored a lot of us, and there has been some massive backlash that Nintendo right now is kind of ignoring. So it starts with this. Selling a tech manual is a rather bold choice. Yes, the Welcome Tour. This is a game of sorts. Explore the new system through tech demos, mini games, and quizzes with Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. A lot of people thought that this was originally like a joke. Ha ha ha. It's not going to be paid, of course. But no, Nintendo is actually charging for the manual of the game pretty much, or the console pretty much. And I just, again, another thing that's absolutely fucking ridiculous to me. And here we have, like I said, Nintendo confirms the US price. It's $9.99, and I just don't see the reasoning for this being charged making any sense. This is something that's not going to sell at all. We obviously have seen that Nintendo has been defending this in some of the interviews and stuff that they have done, but I do find some of the impressions that are going around absolutely hilarious. Switch 2's paid tutorial Welcome Tour almost made a player fall asleep at a Nintendo event. Not good at all. The optics of this looks so horrible, and it makes Nintendo look extremely greedy, especially with the context of everything that we're about to get over with all the pricing and all the controversy and the defenses coming from Nintendo. But yeah, specifically Nintendo of America's VP of Product and Player Experience, Bill Trinan, he said it was a robust piece of software that will appeal to people really interested in the specs, adding that the amount of care and work that the team put into it made it worth the price. And I swear to God, there is no correlation with the amount of work that's put into a game and, you know, pricing something. It just keeps happening in this industry. We worked on this for so many years, so this is the justification for X, Y, Z price. That's just stupid. I find that reasoning so dumb. This specific Nintendo executive took things a step further in another interview, this time with IGN, saying that $9.99 is not an exorbitant price in his eyes. Bill Trinan additionally saying that it's a pretty robust piece of software with a lot of great detail in there. Furthermore, he added, for some people, I think there are people who are particularly interested in the tech and the specs of the system, and he says it's pretty much made for them, rather than necessarily a quick intro to everything it does. And for that reason, and just the amount of care and work that the team put into it, I think it was decided that, yeah, this feels like $9.99. It's not an exorbitant price. It feels like a good value for what you're getting out of the product. And again, delusional mindset at the very least. Now, Nintendo of America's Senior VP of Development and Planning, Nate Bildroff, he shared similar sentiments with comicbook.com, adding that it features lots of really fun mini games. And then we have this impression coming from a gaming YouTuber, Jake Randall, claiming that someone at the Switch 2 event in New York City almost fell asleep playing it and compared it to an instruction manual with mini games. And the justification for charging for that, I just don't see it right now. And this just seems like it was a massive mistake. One of the many mistakes that so far have been made with with the Switch 2, which calls into question of how, how great this will be for the next console generation for Nintendo. Will they be able to reach the heights of the Switch? Right now, I have extreme skepticism, especially with what they're doing with game prices. But like I said, this is the debut trailer of this, their little gameplay video that they showed off. 13,000 dislikes to only 1.8 thousand likes. I think that really tells the story so far. Super generous of Nintendo for letting us watch this for free. To the person who decided that the virtual manual shouldn't be a free pack and title, I hope they step on a Lego. And the fact that you have to pay for this is the first lesson of the Switch 2 tutorial. The fact that this isn't free is genuinely baffling. So you kind of get the sentiment here, and I think I really would love to see how many people are actually going to buy this, because I'm extremely skeptical of that. Now, though, we also have the mysterious C button. We finally found out that it was a GameChat feature, but again, this just lines up with the greed that we have so far seen with the Switch 2, because yes, this is another thing that is being paywalled. It is one of those things you have to pay for the monthly service. I think that's like $19.99 a month, and I think a lot of people in their eyes is just, I'll use Discord instead. I love my Switch. I play my Switch a lot with family, and yes, Discord, stuff like that, or playing it in person, like, that's just the way I go about it. So I don't know, we'll see how the game chat feature works, but pretty much it's one of those things that if you're not paying for the subscription service, it's just something that's there and something that won't be usable, I guess, at all. Now, it is worth mentioning that this is the main meat of this video I really wanted to talk about. First-party Switch 2 games, including re-releases, all run either $70 or $80. All Nintendo titles see an increase from the $60 Switch 1 status quo. The industry has once again gone up about $10 in pricing. And the comparisons I've seen people making to the 90s, oh, the pricing back then was like $80 fucking dollars for games. And guess what? Very different period. We had Blockbuster. Game ownership just was very different back then versus how it is now. And the amount of people that were actually interested in gaming is drastically different than then versus now. So I just don't like the comparisons people have been making to how pricing used to be, because yes, rentals, used games, that was a major component. That is not the case now in this digital focused future. And I just find the defenses people have been making for Nintendo nauseating, in my opinion. But specifically, we have this Nintendo Switch 2 Edition game upgrade pack prices seemingly revealed for the Japan, and it pretty much indicates that a lot of the big games, first-party Nintendo games, are getting $10 to $20, I guess you could say, upgrade paths, pretty much. It's pretty much what we've seen out of PlayStation as of late. I think Xbox has been a little bit more fair with giving out free upgrades, but yes, this seems to be the new thing Nintendo is going to be doing. But there's another layer to this that does need to be mentioned. It's the fact that I don't know if these games, this is something that you would have to decide yourself, but looking at some of the gameplay that they've shown, like here we have Breath of the Wild, Switch 1 versus Switch 2, is that a justification for paying another $10 to $20? I don't know. I mean, I've seen some of the work that PlayStation has done with their remakes and remasters, and I feel like they've at least justified it a little bit more than this, in which the resolution looks obviously a little bit more crisper, but that's about it. And yes, charging fans for upgrades, this has been normalized. This is the new thing, and I guess you could say it did start with PlayStation, but again, the effort that has been put into this, I question it. I really do. And obviously we have also seen Nintendo Switch 2 games will cost up to $98 for physical games when converted from euros, and this is just adding on to the game pricing issues that so many people have been hammering home on and hoping Nintendo does revert, but it doesn't look like they will be doing based on some comments that we're about to get into. But it has been announced that price for games in the Nintendo Switch 2 will set players back up to $80, but things have become even more steep for players in different regions, and this is the big thing. Regional pricing, especially if you're in certain countries in Europe, this is going to be an absolute nightmare for you. The price increase has affected European players particularly hard, with Nintendo Switch 2 games costing €80 for a digital copy in Europe, while physical will be for €90. That's $98 when converted to dollars, and that is just absolutely nightmarish. And it goes on to mention that the announcement of $80 digital video games for the Switch 2 can be found on the official Nintendo website. This has been confirmed now. This is the big thing that a lot of us originally, when these price points were announced, Nintendo didn't come out originally like saying this is what this is going to cost. They kind of initially just didn't give any indication for any of the pricing. That was the really confusing part about all of this. And then in the coming days, we've gotten the clarity that it's unfortunate, really. It is worth mentioning, however, that Donkey Kong Bonanza is being priced at $70. That seems to suggest it will continue to be on a game-by-game basis, something that Doug Bowser has confirmed in an interview that we're about to get into, though $80 might be few and far between, at least for now. And I guarantee you one of the big problems that we're going to see happen is that all the AAA games industry is going to follow suit with that price point. You're going to see it with all the big releases, NBA 2K, Madden, EAFC, Call of Duty. That is going to be the new norm moving forward, and that's because Nintendo, one of the top dogs in this industry, set that. And that's what a lot of people were hoping Rockstar Games was going to do with Grand Theft Auto 6, but they didn't have to wait because Nintendo did it ahead of time. And now the question is, who's going to be the next one to increase prices? Because it's inevitability. It's going to happen. We've seen it the last couple of years. We went from 60 to 70 very fast, and now 70 to 80 even faster. And I think 80 to 90 will be even faster. But yes, this is an example somebody brought up. Switch 2 costs $700 in Norway, and Mario Kart alone is $102. Might be skipping this one, boys. And yeah, some of the regional pricing that is hitting some of these countries extremely hard. And this is what I mean by some of the outcry and outrage that we have seen. Nintendo Switch 2 live stream comments are 99% spam of drop the price. And this is before the whole tariff thing that has now engulfed the gaming industry and concerns that maybe the price increase that we're seeing so far could be even, maybe we'll see $90 because of it. Who knows what ends up happening. But yes, this is on the Nintendo Switch channel. Drop the price back to 60. And unfortunately, Nintendo isn't listening at all. And this is a video that a YouTuber took of the chat. Here you go, 50,000 people all saying drop the price. And so far, Nintendo just doesn't care about any of that because they think they are justified with this price point, which so far I have not seen any justification with the experiences that they are building. Obviously, there's people defending them, some of the comments we're going to get into, but I just don't see it personally myself. And this is what I mean. GameStop posted this, an update from Nintendo. Pre-orders for the Nintendo Switch 2 have been delayed. They were supposed to start on April 9th. They won't because of the ongoing trade war and tariffs and a lot of the confusion going on with that. But there is a reality in which the prices that have been set by Nintendo do increase because of the real-world economic stuff that's going on. But that's not certain at all yet. It remains to be seen. Now, we finally get to Doug Bowser. He is the, again, president of Nintendo, and he had a recent interview with Gene Park of the Washington Post in which he defended the game prices. This is the defense that is infuriating in my opinion. So Gene Park, he says, I sat down with Doug Bowser, Nintendo of America's president, the day before the tariff decision. Nintendo won't address the tariffs beyond the delay announcement. But Bowser provided some insight into the company's approach to pricing titles. First off, Bowser noted that the other marquee title, Donkey Kong Bonanza, remains at the standard retail price for premium games of $70. What you see right here is variable pricing. We'll look at each game, really look at the development that's gone into the game, the breadth and the depth of the gameplay, if you will, the durability over time, and the repeatability of gameplay experiences. Those are all factors, and there's many more that go into consideration of what it is the right price point for the game. So I think you can anticipate that there will be variable pricing, and we haven't set a benchmark. And this sounds very familiar because we heard a similar defense from Ubisoft in which their justification for charging $70 for Skull and Bones was, we did a lot of hard work, we worked on it for many years, it's a quadruple A game. And more or less, that's kind of what Doug Bowser is saying here. He just says that we put a lot of hard work in this game, and we feel like it justifies the price point. And the problem is, this gaming industry uses this defense all the fucking time for any experience in every. We've heard this justification used for literally NBA 2K. NBA 2K, one of the greediest franchises. Take-Two CEO believes its games can justify a $70 price tag, and he was using that specifically with NBA 2K. I think that really does say a lot about the delusional mindset of a lot of these executives in this industry. And I understand, Nintendo experience is very different than just some shitty NBA game, but the truth is that they are the trendsetters, Nintendo one of them, and the industry is going to follow suit because of this. And pretty much moving forward, we're going to see all of these new AAA experiences now charging this new premium of $80 until eventually another trendsetter takes it up to $90 and eventually $100, which feels like that's where we're headed. And it is worth mentioning that Take-Two Interactive, they were one of the companies that did defend their $70, saying that there was no pushback, and that's because they have such a hold on their audience. Casual gamers eat up these games. They're not going to lose out or miss out on NBA, the new NBA installment, just over $10. And that's what I mean. That's what there was tons of outcry online, but Strauss Zelnick, the Take-Two CEO, he doesn't care about any of that. And I think in Nintendo's eyes, if Mario Kart World's still selling, 10 million copies or whatever, they're not going to care about the outcry that they're seeing right now. But ultimately, I think that this turns off a lot of people to many other experiences, and that's going to be a problem moving forward for this AAA games industry, or quadruple A games industry at this point. I feel like that's what we should be defining it as. But getting back to this interview from Gene Park of the Washington Post, he went on to ask Bowser if Nintendo breaking the seal on higher game prices is part of its role as an industry leader, which I think is an interesting question to ask. And Bowser said, "I think it's less about representing the industry. This is really about Nintendo deciding the right thing to do for its products, or what the pricing should be for its products overall. Even in the previous generation, we had some variability." Bowser pointed to various Zelda games being priced differently. Tears of the Kingdom in 2023 was massively popular and Nintendo's first $70 game, while the previous game for 2017 is $60. The remake of Link's Awakening also cost $60, and while it's an old Game Boy game, it was completely remade from the ground up with new technology, art style, and content. Even with that, some people were upset with the pricing. I think that should be mentioned in this discussion. Bowser says, "I think for us, that's really how we want to proceed and go forward. I can't speak for other games that might be released by other publishers or other platforms, which many are going to follow suit with this new pricing. It's more about what we think is right for our content, what is the right value for the consumers as they come into our platform." And I just don't like this response at all, and I think it really does a disservice to the gaming audience, and also Nintendo's role as a trendsetter within this industry. And obviously, Nintendo doesn't care about any of that, they're just looking at themselves, but I do find this is an extremely greedy decision. And adding on to the remarks that were made in that Washington Post interview, we actually do have a video interview from CNBC with Doug Bowser, in which he continues his remarks and defending of the price point for the Switch 2 games at $80, and specifically Mario Kart World.
The console has a digital download that it's a $50 add-on. But if you buy the game itself, this got a lot of attention. I don't know if you've seen.
He's seen
$80. That's a lot for a game. I know it's typically not what Nintendo charges. And then we look at the Donkey Kong game that's coming out about a month later. It's $70. Can you talk a little bit about how the gaming pricing strategy is $80 kind of the benchmark for a AAA game from Nintendo? What should we be expecting in the Switch 2 generation as far as how much we're going to be spending on these games?
Yeah, I would say that we're not really looking to establish a benchmark for pricing. We look at every game.
They haven't set a benchmark specifically because pricing variability, but it is the new benchmark for this AAA games industry. People will follow Nintendo's lead.
In every experience and determine what we believe is the right price point based on that experience. You've had a chance to play Mario Kart World and see how deeply immersive it is and how fun it is. And we haven't shown everything yet. We still have a Mario Kart World Direct that'll be coming that'll show even the deeper feature set. So we believe, based on the depth and breadth of the play and the repeatability of the play over time, the pricing that we announced is the right pricing. But again, other games like you mentioned, Donkey Kong Bonanza, it's going to be at a $70 price point because that is what we feel is the right price point for that particular gaming experience.
Yeah, and it's a continuation of what he said, and this is their defense that they're going to be going with, and I just don't like it at all.
So there's no standard price, basically.
There's no standard price.
What about for third-party titles? Is that kind of up to the developer?
Yeah, and then he continues just bringing up the fact that, AAA publishers, they can do whatever they want. And ultimately, I don't like any of these remarks. I don't like the defending. I don't like the fact that they're using, we put so much passion into this game, so this is why we're making this the new price point of $80, even though everybody else in this industry is going to follow suit. And really, the justification that Bowser makes here is one that could be used on any game game. I think that this gaming industry is making a mistake by upping the price for a lot of these AAA experiences, as it's turning off a lot of players from buying these new games. And I think that is going to be a problem that we see moving forward. You see all these games, flaunting their 10 to 30 million copies, sold. But as the economy, struggles, there's issues there, and these prices keep going, ballooning up, you're going to see more and more people just playing older experiences. And that's what's been happening the last couple of years. Gamers mostly played older games like GTA 5 and Fortnite in 2023. This is going to become the norm. This is going to be the new thing. And I think a lot of people really don't understand that these free-to-play games like Fortnite and Roblox and stuff, that is what a lot of the younger generation is playing. That's why console growth has stagnated. And part of the issue is the fact that a lot of adults, especially I think it's 1 out of 3 or maybe even close to half, are living paycheck to paycheck in America. What that means is that buying video games is seen as a want. And with a lot of Americans, they're only buying one new video game or so a year. And yeah, a lot of the time it is mainstream franchises like the Call of Duties, like Battlefields. And that makes it harder for, non-big franchises to grow, or games that aren't 10 out of 10s. And that's why I do think you see a lot of the younger generation pivoting to games that are cheaper or free to play. And I think that's why you've seen, a lot of the big franchises that have taken off with these younger audiences are the ones that are not costing an arm a leg pretty much. And that's why Nintendo going about this and making these experiences even more expensive, I just feel like this really could blow up in this gaming industry's face, and Nintendo is the one who started this, especially this new $80. And obviously they're not going to take any ownership of that because they're just looking at themselves, but this is going to be the new norm, and I think it could have an effect on everybody. But these are some of the comments people have been saying after seeing the Switch 2 Direct. I can safely say I have zero regrets for owning the Steam Deck. And yeah, the Steam Deck definitely looking very good in my eyes personally. Switch 2 is like a reverse PS3, where instead of being a horrifically overpriced console with no games at launch, it's a moderately reasonable price console with loads of games that are all horrifyingly overpriced. Okay, and this is how the Nintendo Switch 2 menu will look like, because people can only afford one game, and that very much so is true. Somebody saying, I hope that the Switch 2 is plagued by piracy right out of the gate. Nintendo deserves it. Another comment saying, those Nintendo Switch 2 game prices, I think I miss my $60 games. And yeah, I think a lot of people don't, when they talk about these games, like, look, publishers, they need more and more money. All of these companies, Nintendo, Sony, Xbox, whatever publisher you want to bring up, they're making billions of dollars. There's more people playing video games than ever before, and microtransaction sales, which is where the bread and butter really is made with a lot of these companies, they're making more money than ever. That's why I think about this AAA, billion-dollar corporation. I just find that such a lousy excuse. These companies aren't struggling to, make money. They're making so much money. They're just trying to increase their bottom line here, and that's what's missing from a lot of the conversations right now surrounding the pricing. In the wake of today's Switch 2 news, I am once again screaming this from the rooftops, and here's one of the defenders. An $80 game in the big 2025 is still worlds cheaper than games were back in the day. And again, people have rightfully ridiculed this remark, pointing out that how game ownership back then versus now, and just the gaming environment was very different. And this comic kind of summarizes it. It's okay for Nintendo to set new pricing standards because they used to charge a fuck ton before. Most people bought games secondhand back in the day, and for way less than, also rentals, of course, than even $60, and they could trade them and sell them later. There is no reason for a digital game to be $80, and I agree. I really do. Nintendo is really on another level of greediness, bruh, and yes, this is the Switch 2 edition. Again, this is the thing about the digital-only future. Prices don't go down. You're not going to have GameStop in which you can find a used game for $10 or $20, which again is another point I'm trying to make with the younger generation and how they're, them getting involved in the console games and stuff. It's just not happening as much anymore, and that is because these AAA publishers are charging a premium, and these prices aren't moving down at all, especially with this all-digital future. This is what these companies have wanted. They want a more hold on these prices and ensure that they don't go down. And the fact that they're selling $70 for a game that came out, 8 or 9 years ago on originally the Wii U, I believe it released on, I just find that honestly insane. And yes, obviously we talked about some of the side-by-side comparisons. I don't think that the remake justifies the $10 or $20 increase, but this is a game that should not be $70 sellers in the big year of 2025. Obviously, that's everybody else can debate that, but that's just my personal perspective. And another one, as far as I can tell, you can buy Breath of the Wild for $70 on Switch 2, and it doesn't come with the game's DLC. Amazing stuff. And yeah, these are the pricing so far. You got Kirby, $80, Street Fighter 6 is $60. Yeah, this pricing is absolutely horrific, and this is the all-digital future. This is what these publishers and companies desperately want, and I truly do fear it. And yeah, one of the big issues with physical games dying is pretty much this, just absurd pricing in my opinion, that is becoming normalized. And yes, obviously people have been pointing out the next big trendsetter could be Rockstar Games. Rockstar Games realizing they can get away with charging $90 USD for GTA 6 after the Switch 2 game announcements today. Another person saying, again, Rockstar looking like they're about to drop GTA 6 for $100. And look, the truth is this gaming industry has been desperately wanting one of these big companies to increase prices. And Embracer said this back in 2024. They were talking about how much work and how much hard work they put into role-playing games, and they're saying what happens if a 10 out of 10 game comes out? Why shouldn't they feel justification for charging an increase? And they said, would it be that one company one day that tries to increase pricing? That remains to be seen, and it has happened now. And that $80, I guarantee, is going to become the new norm moving forward. And it's not like it's going to be the next GTA 6 is going to be charging that. It's going to be any and all big experiences, because all these AAA publishers glaze up any and all game, even if it is like a 5 out of 10 in terms of quality in the eyes of most consumers. Yeah, ACG of Jeremy Penter, game reviewer, saying there's no indication nor history nor even a hint that Rockstar takes pricing ideas from Nintendo. That is flatly ridiculous. If GTA launches at 100, it was going to do so far before Nintendo showed prices today, which I think it is fair. That's a stunning, almost asinine thought process, although I do think that Rockstar at least has a little bit more justification in their eyes, I suppose, if they do want to increase prices, especially as Nintendo just did it. And even if they weren't going to go for 100, I guarantee now it will be $80, and maybe special editions take it up to 100. You get a free horse or a free car or fucking something, which is also a norm in this industry to try to get people to buy deluxe editions. Some other comments: RDR2 cost $400 million to make from the ground up and sold for $60. Meanwhile, Nintendo develops Mario Kart using reused assets for less than $50 million and wants to sell for $90. How can anyone possibly justify these atrocious prices from Nintendo? And I do think what's missing from this conversation is the fact that graphic fidelity isn't the whole thing. Fun factor is a big part of these experiences, which is why a lot of people absolutely love Zelda, Mario, and a lot of the Nintendo first-party experiences. I don't think we need it to look like an absolute 10 out of 10, although some of these games, I will admit, like the Pokemon installments, the fact that they haven't really evolved much in the last 20 years, this is just a whole different discussion that we could have in terms of, Nintendo should be doing better with some of these franchises, although I do think Mario, more often than not, with a lot of these entries, is extremely fun, and I do think it is worth the price. Now, $80, that's a different discussion, because I don't think it is worth $80. Now, it is also worth mentioning, we did see Bucky, the Paywalled, ironically enough, the company that has been sued by Nintendo. They did chime into this whole discussion saying, gee whiz and gosh golly, it sure feels like $70 to $90 games might only benefit AAA and not indies, huh? You'll say they won't all be $70 to $90 now, but by the end of the year, they'll be doing it across every platform. The moment one game sells well, the floodgates open, and I agree. Look, it is what it is. People are going to buy them anyway, and the discourse will only sour a year or so before gamers get used to it. I'm just not sure gaming as a whole is ready for that shift in price. It doesn't mean the quality of games get better, but we are going to see a lot of AAA companies start eyeballing these price points now, and I agree. And then another thing that we didn't even get into discussion of, again, it's just the push into this all-digital future in which game key cards was announced. Cartridges do not have any data on them, and you will need to download the game from the internet like a digital version. In addition, the cartridges must be inserted to play. This is just, again, the push from physical game ownership to digital. We're seeing that in real time, and something like this, I'm just like, why even bother? These are similar to the require additional download games on the Switch 1, where a developer would use the smallest cartridge size and implement the additional download as a software update. And again, I just don't see the point of this, in my opinion. But it has been said that this is something that can be traded, so I guess there is a little bit of upside with this. But again, I don't really understand a lot of the decisions that have been made with the Switch 2. It feels like a lot of Nintendo shooting themselves in the foot. And that really is the summarization of all of the defenses and all of the comments and all of the reveals that have happened with this console in terms of pricing. It's just a mess right now. And I am very curious to see how mainstream audiences react to it. I'm sure it's going to start out strong out the gate, but will it have, the upside that the first, the Nintendo Switch had? I genuinely have skepticism about that, and I feel like Nintendo following the path that the Xbox One and PlayStation 3 did, that's nightmarish. And anyway, what do you make of all of this? What do you make of Doug Bowser's remarks, his defenses of the pricing so far, the Switch 2? What do you make of some of the other announcements that have been made since the event? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.